Novak Djokovic is back in detention and waiting to hear whether he will be deported. Live to Julia Bradley now in Melbourne. Julia, he's back at the Park Hotel?
That's exactly right, Kenny. This is the facility where Novak Djokovic was detained early last week following that first cancellation of his visa, which was then overturned. So we understand he's here at the Park Hotel detention facility, a facility which also houses a number of refugees. So as his vehicle was driven into that facility, we know a number of people are outside the front, are holding up signs. They are, of course, in favour of ending the detention of these refugees. Now, prior to being taken here, he was inside the offices of his lawyers in the city, and he was driven out of that vehicle and then driven here. But it was really a classic decoy when that was all unfolding. There were two vehicles, two men were seated, they had their head down, they had a cap on in both of those vehicles before they were driven here. So it's unclear as of yet exactly which one was the tennis world #1 Novak Djokovic, but regardless, this all unfolding ahead of that last-ditch appeal attempt tomorrow. That's scheduled for 9:30 in the morning. So Novak Djokovic's lawyers, they're desperately trying to get a temporary injunction which could allow him to stay in the country and then take part in the Australian Open next week. The Immigration Minister, Alex Hawke, who used his special powers to cancel Novak Djokovic's visa. We know that his argument really rests on health as well as public order. So they're arguing that having Novak in the country would lead to a rise in anti-vaccination sentiment. But the lawyers representing Novak are arguing that that's irrational and that sentiment would arise even if he was deported. So plenty to play out here in Melbourne over the next few hours and certainly in that hearing tomorrow morning.
And Julia, this is
on the weekend before the tournament begins, after the draw has taken place, we finally have a decision from the federal government. Says it all. This has been a great embarrassment for Australia. It's one that could have been avoided. The rules are clear that you need to be double vaccinated in order to enter Australia, and we still don't have an explanation for how it is that the Australian government under Scott Morrison issued the visa in the first place.
And Julia, this is not going down well in Serbia. The country's president has blasted the Australian government.
Some very scathing words from the Serbian president this morning, blasting the Australian government, as you say, for this saga, really, which has dragged on and on. He's essentially said that if the decision was always to not have him in the country and playing in the Australian Open, well, he shouldn't have been brought here in the first place. And this comes amid concerns that tensions could really escalate between Australia and Serbia if the decision is made tomorrow to deport him.
If he wanted to ban Djokovic from winning his 10th trophy in Melbourne, why didn't you send him back immediately? Why didn't you tell him that it's impossible to get a visa for your country in the first place? Why are you harassing and persecuting him? Not only him, his family too, and the whole of his nation, which is a free nation and proud nation.
And Kenny, if Novak's lawyers are successful tomorrow, they'll certainly hope to have all of that tied up by the afternoon and certainly ahead of Monday in preparation for Novak to potentially take to the court for the Australian Open. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what unfolds. Kenny?
Thank you, Julia. Julia Bradley there.